One of the vehicles you wanted to see on Autogefühl, your number one resource for in-depth car reviews and your number one community to discuss cars, is the Toyota CHR, standing for Coupe High Rider. Well, what's behind this car? What is it actually? Details and exterior in this very interesting Titan blue matte paint, and of course the interior details and the driving experience. Everything of that in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! Well, although it's not the biggest car, it already has a strong appearance in the front, and this blade design of the LED daytime running lights are really, it's very nicely done. The whole headlight unit is so flatly designed. Interesting again, this matte color, and there is also a metallic blue color, which is a little bit darker. And the funny thing is, you will see that at the vehicle. I'll show you soon where you can see it. It's pretty interesting. And from the latest design experiments, I think this one is rather well done, especially in the front. Of course, you can really argue about side profile in the rear, which we'll soon take a look at. This car is really love or hate. Watch that now and then tell me on which side are you actually. 4.36 m or 14'3" is the total length, so it's a compact size or between small and compact size SUV or crossover, however you want to call it. 17 or 18-inch rims, those ones are here the 18. We got the hybrid here for you today, soon more about those engine choices you got. You still have this crossover look at the wheel arches, also at the lower bumper part. Other than that, you can also get a contrast roof here in black, corresponding then right there, or in contrast to the matte blue paint. A lot of dramatic design lines, for example, also here in the rear. This one here going down or up, depending on the perspective. Pretty impressive. Then also those door handles for the rear doors are hidden inside this door graphic. It's very interesting. Then you can open them like this. That's pretty interesting. The front door, by the way, could be a little bit better from the door sound. Also, when you have here the door handles, I think they have not used that much insulation material at the inside of the doors, so they should use a little bit more like that then. There's a wing also attached at the rear part, and everything here, especially in this area, it's so dramatic. The taillights are standing out that much. And this is really where some say, wow, that's so cool, and others say, oh my God, what's that? In any cases, this car really attracts a lot of attention, I can tell you. Everywhere you go, people look for this vehicle. Very interesting. 22,000 euros Germany or dollars in the US is the base price, by the way. And if you go for the hybrid, a little bit higher trim, you end up with about 27,000. Plus some extras, you move into about 30,000. Let's see what you can get for that, with more perspectives and of course then the interior. But it seems like that the matte paint is only on the exterior, that the interior is painted in the usual blue, and of course when the doors are open, that looks pretty weird, doesn't it? Well, if you directly look at it from the rear, it suddenly appears smaller. Don't you think so? Especially from this perspective. Interesting with the taillight LED signature, a little bit tells me Honda Civic. What do you think? Beside this first wing, there's also the second wing right here. So a lot of so many different design features right there. Again, very much catching for attention. Then this classic crossover, black plastic style lower part. And when you open this hatch, you really need a lot of power. It's like, really need some help here. So that could have been solved a little bit better. And what I also realized, I'm not sure if it's the form with the lot of glass here or so, but look at that. How wobbly the whole rear hatches. I've never seen something like that. Strange. The only good thing is it's really tall opening. Well, not good if you have a low basement garage, but I can also stand underneath it and put things in and out. By the way, you can also, without making your hands dirty, grab right here and then close it again. Engine choices. This one is the 1.8 liter naturally aspirated hybrid. System power 122 horsepower, front wheel drive, 11 seconds to 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour. Same performance gives you the 1.2 liter turbo with 116 horsepower, either front wheel drive manual or all-wheel drive together with the CVT. This one here also has the CVT. That's also the reason why the RPMs go so high, and it doesn't really change while shifting in the RPMs because a CVT automatic transmission is not really shifting. And here, well, only those two are available in Germany, but in the US you can also get a 2 liter 4-cylinder with 144 horsepower, and that one might be the best choice also to have a real good power. Very interesting interior because it matches the exterior vehicle color here in the so-called style selection package. It would be comparable with XLE or XLE Premium in the US. Interesting, this diamond structure here. It's a hard plastic structure, but it looks pretty fancy, and I think, you know, also continues here at the lower part. It's really very nice to use some alternative stuff. Then, well, the inside of the door, just very slim, the room you have there. Then on the interior, the decor elements continue further on here. Then rather a purple cover in leather red on top of the dashboard. That's also a nice material choice right there. The steering wheel looks rather boring in comparison to the rest of the car. Then most of the trim levels, even the higher ones, start with fabric trim. That's really nice. I really applaud that. However, some test vehicles, as this one here, the optional animal skin seats, which you can leave out to save money, of course. So, then the middle screen is mounted right there, also and covered with the decor elements in blue. Soon more deals to that. And again, the armrest here is painted in purple. Again, it's not really a calm design. They use a lot of different elements, but we see really a lot of nice features. And when we get inside, well, this is SUV or crossover style, so we have an easy entry. Seating position is also quite above the road, and the only thing is, you know, when you step in and drive some smaller trips, shorter trips, it's really okay. However, I've experienced that for a long-term run, it doesn't give me the most comfortable seating position. Maybe the seat's a little bit too slim. I'm not exactly sure what's the reason for that. But for people with my size, I cannot really recommend it for longer trips. Then the steering wheel can be adjusted in all four ways. However, for me, it would better be here, so it's a little bit limited how high you can put it. Seats here, manual, front and back, electric lumbar support. And then you can pump it up here, yo man. And also the rear part is with the lever. You know, there's always a group which prefers the lever to adjust the rear part and some others who prefer the knob. By the way, most important features for the winter times, heated steering wheel. There's a button in the lower left here, and then, well, just the outside parts get heated, not the top ones. Some other steering wheels also heat top part, but as you mainly grab here, I think we can definitely live with that. Headroom wise, still does remain a little bit above my head. There's no panoramic roof inbuilt here. Interesting that we also had this structure here at the inside of the ceiling. So those are one of the, you know, again, some emotional nice features. And special request, there's also a light here when I look into the mirror into from the sun visor, so you can always see what you're doing. Interior overview. Let's put the ignition on. Here you get the nice leatherette use here on top of the dashboard. Then this blue floating line. I think it's also nicely done, especially when you have this exterior color. If you have a different exterior color, it might look a little bit different then. By the way, if you have the real ignition turned on, it's the only vehicle ever where it has happened. You know, I let the ignition on to have the daytime running lights on the exterior for exterior shots, and I was running outside, and suddenly the engine started itself while I was not in the vehicle. Wow, that happened. First time ever. And here, this one here, the lower part is mirroring the top part design-wise. This is a classic climate unit. You can very well control the temperature, vents, also heated seats. A little bit strange to press, a little hard to press, and because the button does not give you a very good response. I like also the floating lines over to the right side again, together with the diamond structure at the inside of the doors. The steering wheel again does not really fit the vehicle, I think. A lot of those shiny black plastic use, I don't like that one. Same here. Those are the parts that make the car look cheap. This one here looks super premium and stuff. No matter, you know, of the color choice now, if you like it or not, it's really very well designed. But all the black hard plastic stuff, this reminds me rather, you know, for example, of a Mitsubishi ASX. And this one here is not the cheapest car again, so maybe they could have some other solutions there. There's the automatic shifting lever there. You can have a D mode and a B mode, talking about the difference there soon in the driving part. Electric handbrake, an EV mode button, and when you want to drive electric only. I'll also explain that one later. In the front part, you can put some things right there. Also a USB port, one bottle holder in the front and another one in the back part of the middle console. They fit different sizes and they're also adaptive. Zoom out to the instruments and the infotainment system, the biggest one that's available here, and the armrest. Well, this one is a little bit loose, that could be more fixedly attached, but some room inside. And the instruments, right side speed and fuel, left side is rather interesting. If the arrow goes into charge, the energy is regenerating, then as soon as you hit this eco green field, everything below that is the pure electric engine. Above that is with the combustion engine, but in a good consumption RPM range. And when you are at power, you are consuming a lot of fuel, but you use the engine more. And in the middle part, there's a digital screen. You can have different functions with it. Here, for example, depending on if you have the ignition on or off, here's also the fuel consumption. And for example, you can also have a digital speedometer. This is when you really start up the car. It's also an interesting visualization right there. And here, for example, you can then have the range, energy monitor, or the digital speed. Through this infotainment system, you see it is rather slow. This is the energy monitor. You can watch the flow of energy depending on if the battery is getting charged or not. Volume control right here, but you rather do it at the steering wheel for sure. Again, take some time. This is a basic overview. Then again, you can only connect your phone via Bluetooth here. Apple CarPlay and stuff is not available. And the strange thing is also when you have to connect the music and the phone function individually. And then if you put the plug to charge the phone, the Bluetooth music is cancelled. This is really, and then you have to go right here to the music stop and then pick another source and then play the smartphone like with the iPod. So that's really annoying software programming. Then here the map, you cannot zoom in and out like with a smartphone, is super slow. So it's a nice integration here, I think. But the software, it does the main job, but it's basically a programming fail, I would say. What about the rear compartment? Well, it's pretty dark in here as the rear windows are shaded, and also you see this so thick everything off the door, and by the way, hard cover here, and so small windows and stuff. What is nice that you have bottle holders here in the inside of the doors, and also this diamond design scheme is carried over on here also at the rear doors. That's nicely done. Seating position is, well, pretty okay. Knee space I have here, well, I only have a comfortable seating position when I have the front seat a little bit turned backward, so I could theoretically turn it a little bit forward. That's, I think, you know, standard for a compact size car. Maybe some others are a little bit better in this case. Headroom wise, well, I'm 1.86 or 6'1". I can still fit a hand over my head, and this is really remarkable because the exterior design suggests that there's no room at all for your head in the rear, but that's still quite okay. Other than that, you can just flip the seat from here also. There's no way to adjust the angle or something. Isofix at the inside parts. There's no middle armrest. You know, kept pretty easy here in the rear. For sure, the knee room is not the most special thing about this vehicle, and it's more, I think, a two-person car, but basically it is possible to fit 4 adults here. And here we have an easy way to activate the child safety lock, like this, and then you cannot open the door from the inside. And just back again, you have to be careful not to damage your fingernails. Then you can open the door from the inside again. And inside, typical dimensions for a compact vehicle, very well to use, here also with some fixations, and under the cover just for tire repair. And then you can also flip around the seats, so you have to go around because there's no way, at least when you have the cover installed, you can do that from the trunk. Then you have a step right here, and this is also a little bit wobbling around. Top tether on the back side, so there are more versatile cars for sure, but I mean, it's not a very long car, and for that you see it here when you have the setup. By the way, some parts which are also, you know, lacking some covers, for example right here, but other than that, you know, I would say just standard to use. Welcome to the driving part. And you maybe hear already something of this naturally aspirated engine with pretty low power, 1.8 liters of displacement, 22 horsepower front wheel drive. And although we're driving the hybrid here, it's still front wheel drive, so the hybrid is also just supporting the front wheels. Here, if I want to go from, let's say, 85 to 100 and really hammering the throttle, so loud turning and hardly anything is happening acceleration wise, and that's the main characteristic of this vehicle already. You do not want to rush it because you just can't. So basically this engine is underpowered for the vehicle, I would say so, if you want a little sporty feeling. So if you're driving slowly, overall it's no problem, and as this vehicle makes you drive slowly as well, it's then again quite okay. But for example, overtaking maneuvers on the motorway won't be taken so fast. Also, you hear at 100 kilometers an hour, it's already getting quite noisy in here. So the sound installation is also not the best. So you tend to just ride 100 kilometers and that's it. Setting in the cruise control, which is available here. Also, it's an adaptive one. Sadly, it only runs above 50 kilometers an hour, and yeah, that could be, you know, that could be a little better. You cannot use it, by the way, in the B mode. Soon talking about the B mode of the shifting mode, just in the D mode. And well, usually with the hybrid inbuilt system here, the one thing that is actually really good is the fuel consumption, and tested now for quite a long time, and it is about 5.5 liters on 100 kilometers. Now when I'm going on the brakes, left side I see the needle going to charge, so you can play with that of course a little bit. And now, for example, I'm waiting for those cars to come by. Oh, that's a nice blue paint here of the Touran. Nice. A little bit brighter than ours at the moment. So, and here for example, well, I have the AC turned off. Got this heated steering wheel on. Let's turn that off, because the less other consumers you have in the car, the more the car will also go into the EV mode. And by the way, if you have the B mode activated, this one charges the battery intentionally, basically. But this is also the case then that the EV mode is not being activated. At the moment in normal D mode, now for example I'm driving pure electric, really silent, that's nice, just gently on the throttle, and that's excellent. For example, taxi drivers use it with the Toyota Prius, for example. But here also when you're in traffic, rolling from traffic light to traffic light, or maybe just cruising around finding a parking spot or inside your neighborhood, this is really handy. You're silent, you don't annoy anyone there, no local emissions. That's really nice, and the main advantage of this hybrid engine. Still running just in EV mode, because gently on the throttle I've recuperated or regenerated before a little bit, and well, going only slightly uphill, then as soon as I would press the throttle a little bit harder, then the combustion engine gets activated. And you can also look at that at the left side of the instruments, where exactly are those thresholds, but of course you don't should get so much distracted then when looking at it. Now when we're going downhill, it's in the EV mode anyway. Also we are charging a little bit, and if I would then now go to the B mode, the regeneration is intensified, but at the same time the EV mode turns off. So this B mode is really there if you say, I want to charge the battery to be able to use it in the zero emission mode at a very special time when you reach your neighborhood, for example. The most efficient way is just to let the car do its job. Also, you can go into the pure EV mode yourself with this button in the middle console. Again, the most efficient way is just to let the car do everything automatically. The pure EV mode would then again be if you want intentionally to use the pure electric one at a certain time or so. Because otherwise, if you just leave it in the automatic mode, the car itself decides what's the most efficient thing at the moment. Whoa. This is, by the way, the braking warning. So the automatic emergency brake, which is also standard equipment, this is really nice. It was not activated yet, but it was first giving me a warning that should be a little bit more intensive on the brakes. And well, this is again, as I just told you, the best thing about this vehicle with the inbuilt hybrid. So on the one hand, I'm a little bit skeptical about inbuilt hybrids because they don't deliver you so much pure EV power. But then again, the whole hill we've been going just a little bit up and down now since like 2-3 minutes, just all in the pure electric mode. The engine was not running at all. And that saved us some fuel and saved some emissions, and was also silent, I think pretty pleasing for everyone nearby here. And also when I'm started rolling again now for the next traffic light, the same will happen. So those are the situations where you can really very well use it. Or if you're stuck in a very, very slow traffic, then you could just roll a little bit forward and then that's it. But as soon as I want to see now accelerate alongside with the normal cars, need a little bit more power, the combustion engine is being activated. And it's really very loud. Also the sound insulation again, when the car is next to me now, I clearly hear that. Talking of next to me, I've got this blind spot monitor, which is a must-have feature in this vehicle because the B pillar is pretty thick. Behind the B pillar you can't see anything due to the exterior design, so you have to have this blind spot monitor to be able to see something. And it's working very well. You see the yellow symbol there in the mirror warning me of approaching vehicles. That comes really handy. And they are using a system which is warning you pretty early. as we had in the discussions earlier in some other reviews, I prefer the systems which give you an earlier warning, definitely. So the vehicle is not that extremely short, but it's also not long, so you get a well along with it in the city, parking spots and so on. The steering is also pretty light. You don't need any force. Well, I haven't tried the force on that one yet, on the steering wheel, but it's obviously not force sensitive, so it doesn't work that way. However, it could be a little bit more direct. Doesn't feel sporty at all, although this car suggests a sporty feeling from the exterior. And to me, sometimes you have to, even though it's pretty light, you have to steer a little bit too much. The seating position, well, you definitely sit upright like in an SUV, although it's more this sporty SUV, coupe, crossover, whatever. But I have experienced better smaller SUVs or compact SUVs for a long-term run, so I'm not exactly that satisfied with the seat form, especially if you have a little longer trip. Of course, it depends from body to body. I can just state you my subjective opinion there. So now transition to the motorway. I can also give you another acceleration. Normal D mode now. Let's say we drop down to 75 and go to 100 and do a lane change by that. Hammering down, and now that's it, 100. See, it does take some time, but it's still an area where I say it is sufficient power. So, and again, especially in the combination with the hybrid now, I tend to drive this car very calm, rather slowly, play a little bit around with, hey, here and there I can use the EV mode again, that's fun and stuff. So that is what the car makes you do, basically, and not exactly making you, race around and stuff. Other than that, it's pretty stable here on the motorway. Besides the sound installation, which is not really optimized for the higher speeds. However, in most markets they sell this vehicle, there won't be higher speeds anyway. So this is pretty much a German thing, when you look at how does a car perform at 150 kilometers an hour, and also sound insulation wise. That's really relevant for a German market, but not for the most other markets. Lines monitor working perfectly again. And also the cruise control, which is an adaptive cruise control here, keeping the distance to the car in front of me. That works pretty well too. Let's see if we can also get a situation where we go to a car when it's really at standstill. I hope that's happening in some time, because that's always a good test for the ACC. Again, it's only working above 50 kilometers an hour to start it. And that definitely could be better. The rest of the overview, by the way, to the rear is better than you expect. So it looks a little bit cramped on the exterior, but you can very well see to the rear. That is actually quite okay. Again, the sides in the rear, this is the major problem. And to the front, well, you have this additional window there next to the A-pillar. The A-pillar is not that big. So now, what does the ACC do? Yeah, that works pretty well. To standstill, also the EV mode is being activated. So that's well done, I think. So the ACC now says wait. By the way, on this monitor we can also check the obviously I didn't want to let the car wait behind me now, but told me in the middle screen that I can also just activate one of the levers to let this car start again. Let's see if the traffic light stays red. We can try that again. So ACC is decelerating pretty smoothly as well. I like that. So this is some kind of traffic jam assist. And well, I want to go to resume then. I It should be working when I press this ACC lever. Yes. So putting the ACC lever up, I did not push the throttle now. Car begins the acceleration again. So this comes pretty handy in traffic situations. And however, if you do it manually and then gently press the throttle, of course you can better use the EV mode, because sometimes now when you have the ACC, maybe the car is accelerating more than the EV mode would actually do. That's always nice to see. As soon as you hit the brakes, goes into the EV mode, regenerates some energy, and you know that not so much is being lost. On the big monitor, you can always then see, is the energy going back to the battery? Is the combustion engine active? You also see in the front RPM meter where it actually is. Sorry guys, talking too much. And then you can also have the small digital screen in the middle one to show you actually what's being happening. So there it is for the energy flow, and it also shows me combustion engine to drivetrain, battery to drivetrain, or drivetrain to whatever. Again, you shouldn't get too much distracted by that. Some nice visualizations where you can see how the car is reacting for sure. Maybe also quite entertaining as a co-driver then to see that. So, moving on to the countryside, setting the cruise control now again. Again, pretty cozy to drive in the EV mode as we are at the moment when you have the steady speeds. This is again the biggest advantage of the hybrid. The acceleration figure to 100 kilometers an hour is, by the way, 11 seconds, or to 62 miles an hour. And the same is, by the way, for the smaller turbo engine. You know, there's this 1.2 liter turbo engine with 116 horsepower. Is that one better? I'm not exactly sure. It will have a different characteristic. You won't have the hybrid. Then again, prices at Toyota, the hybrids are not necessarily more expensive. That depends on the vehicle. But most manufacturers, anything that is with electrification is more expensive. At Toyota, they're building so many of those inbuilt hybrids that they have a very good rate where they can offer it, because it's just economies of scales. You know, they build it that often that they can really offer it at a good rate then. What will make a difference is the 2-liter engine that you can get in the US. This one does have more power then. So this could be a little bit better, especially when you do some overtaking on the motorway. So does the hybrid pay off at the end of the day? I'm not exactly sure. Well, 5.5 liters as an average consumption is quite good for a petrol engine in general, and the hybrid does help there. However, it is also the case because I'm driving the vehicle rather slowly and it does not want me to drive it that fast. The suspension actually suggests a rather sporty handling at first, because it does not tilt at all. It's rather stiff. That one does fit to the sporty design on the exterior, but at the same time the suspension is not only stiff but also rough. And sometimes there are stiff suspensions which are sporty and nice, but when I'm going through those potholes here now, it really makes me having a rather rough time. So I'm not exactly sure if that's the right decision for the car, because, you know, steering wise, engine wise, you know, from the whole concept, everything is telling you rather relax, take it slowly, which is totally okay from the decision. I do not necessarily need a very sporty car for everyday driving. Not everyone needs that. Some want that, some others that. So that's the reason why there are different cars with different setups. But then again, the only thing that is fitting is this extreme design on the exterior together with the stiff suspension. But driving the car rather makes it uncomfortable. So I think they should have rather fitted the suspension a little bit softer according to the other core values of this vehicle and said, okay, we just make the sporty design, but everything else, driving-wise, we make it a little bit more comfortable for the customer. So, let's sum it up, this driving part here. It's nice to drive in the pure EV mode with the hybrid. It's fun to play around with it a little bit and to make a little bit of a challenge actually to consume less fuel, and the fuel saving does work. However, you have to think about, well, how many liters did we really save by the hybrid? 1 liter on 100 kilometers? 1.5? Something like that. Then the question is, of course, is it really necessary to have such a rather complicated system just for 1 liter of fuel consumption less? You can argue about that. Suspension is too stiff, I think, too uncomfortable. Also the seating position itself, the seats are not really good for long-term driving. So this is rather, it's a Hyundai Ioniq. Haven't seen which one of the 3 versions it was. So rather a city street vehicle, not exactly for the long-term run, to attract attention inside the city. Steering wheel and riding characteristic, engine power is more on the soft, rather, taking an easy ride, not the very performance approach. And also the visibility is limited. From a general quality impression, it's quite good. Also how the systems work, for example, that works pretty well. And of course, we cannot judge that in this test, but we always get a lot of feedback from Toyota owners who say, my vehicle is pretty reliable, and that's maybe one of the main aspects. So again, if you are a Toyota owner, and maybe especially already of the CHR, it's not been going for such a long time, but always like to gather feedback from the customers out there, because there can be so many different approaches to testing vehicles and whatever. And the best thing is actually to get a feedback from someone who's been driving with the car maybe for a year, for 2 years or whatever. So if you're among those, feel free to share the feedback in the comments below. And now the end of our review, our conclusion for today, the Toyota CHR. Well, definitely a very extreme exterior design, separating in love or hate. What about you? Love or hate? Tell me in the comments. I really like this matte blue paint. This is something very extraordinary, very special. And if you want to drive something in the city which looks so special and so different from other vehicles, besides a small resemblance from the Honda Civic in the rear, well, this one is indeed very special and also the main characteristic of this vehicle. The interior also with some emotional elements, with the curved blue corresponding color, for example, especially here fitting to the exterior color. Some less use of the black plastic, the shiny elements. That would be good, but it's the same stuff than with a lot of other brands lately. As for the very emotional design on the exterior, I was surprised that we still got reasonable room on the inside. Not best in class, but again, rather surprised that it wasn't less. Driving-wise, well, it was surely very interesting. There's not much power at all, especially not with the hybrid, but you can play around a little bit with saving fuel, for example. So you drive this car calmer in general. But then again, I think the stiff suspension does not really fit the overall setup. However, why is this car so successful? Well, it's the price, because it's not a real cheap car. But then again, if you get it rather low spec, you can still go for a good price, still already have an SUV. And well, if you don't need, for example, the room that is offered in the Toyota RAV4, for example. So this very screaming out design being something special together with a price which is still acceptable and also a reasonable fuel consumption. That's why this car is so successful, especially in some Asian markets. And I would like to hear your opinion on that one. From all the facts we've given you, join us in the comments. Let's start a discussion and also see you next time.